Yeah, I kept texting you about this where there were great starts to like interesting storylines. And I don't want to make people think that like, oh, it has to have a plot or a storyline, which like it doesn't, right? Like obviously it doesn't, but it's just if you're not going to give us any type of pull through, if you're not going to take this little thing that you set up here and then give us the cause and effect of it in any regard, then you better, like, supplement that with something else. Like, you have to do it with something else to keep the reader going through. And that's part of the thing that frustrated me so much.
Yeah, there's this character, Ray, that we meet, who I guess had a stroke when he was a kid, and some part of a monkey was put into his body somewhere, or is it like in his brain? Like part of a monkey brain is in his brain or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that was one of the more interesting parts too, is because I think the monkey was supposed to imply that this guy was crazy, right? Like,
Well, I think it was also that, but like, it came from somewhere, right? It came from the story of the monkey. Like this monkey died to save me, right? Like that was sort of his backstory. And so he talks about this little monkey that's like in his head. But like honestly, like I didn't fucking follow his story or why he was there.
his story was he was basically a drifter that ended up hiking, and then we don't even see the series of events that leads the three girls to find him and like tie him up. That was probably the peak of the story for me, and that happens in book one, right?
Yeah, and
Like,
I was confused by that chapter. I was like, like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, okay, it's fine. Like we skip from, you know, perspective to perspective and we're gonna like miss some events
right.
and like jump in time and whatever. But it was like so jarring sometimes that to like try to orient yourself to what was happening. And like I said, so much of it was so suppressed anyway that it was just like, okay, like as I'm reading, it's like I have to go back through the paragraph and be like, okay, so he found a dead ram. Is that actually what happened?
Yeah.
And okay, so he's with the girls now, and I'd be going back and being like, did I miss something? Like, did they meet up at some point? Did they just happen to be hiking in the same spot? Whatever. Fine. There's some story that the girls were gonna go camping or something. We never actually see them leave to go camping, I don't think. Um,
Yeah.
and the last thing I remember of Ray was that he had broken free from the ropes, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this like one like fucking one-off chapter with these two characters who like we know nothing of and have never met. And this is like how far into the book was
Probably like
that?
150 pages.
More than that, I think. It was like I want to say 193 is what I had in my notes, I think.
I think it was
Yeah.
well, 150 was when Hickey came
It's a
in.
little, it's more than halfway. So
Yeah.
it's like end of book two, beginning of book three. And it's just like these seemingly rich parents who like are in Florida. So that's one of the places where we do get a setting. The Webbs, Dinah and Dick Webb. Those are okay names. And an officer comes to inquire, like, and say, are you the parents of Ray, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no. And they're like, oh, we have some bad news for, his parents. He's like, oh, no, not not for me. And they just sort of like assume that he's probably dead, but like send the officer away and they're like, oh, it's not us.
Right. I
And I'm like,
was
okay, that's Ray's whole story. It's like we knew him for 2 minutes. He went on that, like, we hear about this whole monkey thing. He had this stroke. He's got like sort of like a slack part of his mouth that doesn't really move. He
right.
like stole some cowboy boots and a hat. For some reason, he thought blue snakeskin was a good way to go, which makes me think that he's a fucking idiot.
And he's supposed to be like 19 or something, right?